All right, Chris. So you asked me to have a snifter of brandy, a top hat, and a pipe as I responded to your question about my feelings about homework, and I'm going to expand it slightly out to not just be the issuance of homework in the American education system, but the American education system versus what I know of the Nordic education system at large. But I can't do a snifter of brandy, a top hat, and a pipe. I just don't have that. I can do a beer, which it's got foil around the top, so you know it's fancy. It's a Leffe blonde Belgian. Gotta like blonde Belgians, right? Nor do I have a pipe anymore, as I quit smoking years ago. But I have a bong. That'll work. And just to stay with the alliteration, I also have a bowler. So, one of the biggest things with the American education system versus the Nordic education systems is the priority of the education system. Not only do they not assign homework, because homework is of questionable utility, their maximum allowed class size, the most they are permitted to give to any teacher, is 25 kids per class, I believe. And a lot of people who've never taught, they hear 25 kids in a classroom and then they hear 30 kids in a classroom. They're like, oh, it's not that many more. But that difference of 5 kids makes a massive difference. I currently have 156 students in 5 classes, and 16 of them are considered what they call overload. So I get paid extra for those 16 kids, but the standard number of kids in each classroom is 140 kids divided up over 5 classes, and that's a lot of students. And you add in an extra 2 students or 3 students, and it's a major difference. Right now, my smallest class is 29 students. My largest class is 33. That's a difference of 4. And you can tell, especially because my classroom has 32 seats in it. That's it. I'm at max capacity. I have one science table that has 5 kids at it. And when they try and do a lab, they're damn near knocking each other over just so that they can do the work. Homework in general is maybe useful. There's a lot of contradictory research on it. Homework allows extra practice, and that is the essential idea of it. There are a lot of teachers in the US education system who still use homework the way that it had been used historically, as just work. There's a lot of things that get done in the US education system that are not what they call best practices. And that's the issue. If you've ever done a word search at any educational level, your teacher was just giving you shit work. I despise word searches. I despise crossword puzzles. And I've heard people make the arguments like, well, at least with a crossword puzzle, you're looking at how the word is being spelled, and you have to use its definition or whatever other clue to get that into the No, you don't. No, you don't. You can put the word in the crossword puzzle using other kinds of clues like, oh, I need a 5-letter word. I only have one 5-letter word in my vocab list. Must be that. And then you never actually look at the definition for what it is. Or, other things like that. I need a 12-letter word, and the 3rd and 4th letter are both C's. So there's only one that's got 2 C's next to each other. And word searches are even worse. They're just useless. That's the real issue, is that the American education system does not go for best practices. They go for what has been done. This is a major problem in the education system in our country, and it's one that is being addressed by a lot of teachers and a lot of schools. But the problem is that individual teachers, individual schools are doing this. It's not being done as a national effort to fix the schools. And part of the reason why it's not being done as a national effort is because there is no national effort. Our schools don't function on a national level. They're state and city and county run. So there's not any way to push these kinds of reforms and force them on districts where the culture of the area doesn't want them. And one other big problem that the U.S. school system has is just priority. People don't prioritize education in our country the way they do in the Nordic countries. And this information might be a little out of whack, but as I understand things, they pay teachers there a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. First-year teachers there, first-year teachers here make roughly around the same amount. It comes out to like somewhere between 35 and 50,000, depending on the district that you work for. But I've read numbers, and I didn't verify them. I will admit that state that the Nordic countries, after you've been teaching for like 5-10 years, you're making almost triple digits as a teacher. To get to that level of pay in the U.S. school systems, in most districts anywhere, you have to be minimum school admin to get to that kind of a pay scale. The Washington State pay scale with a master's in education after like 15-20 years is like $70,000 or $75,000 a year, which seems like a lot of money to me right now, but that's because I grew up really poor and I'd be happy to make $50,000 on my own. But if I became a computer programmer, which I could do, I have the abilities, then that $70,000 would be something that I'd be making in the first few years if I was any good at the job. And we don't pay our instructors enough. And I don't want to admit this, but U.S. school teachers teach because they want to, not because it's a good paying job. We are there in an altruistic fashion, and not all of the people who are altruistic about something are good at that thing. I'm sure, I am positive that there are people in the world who would be amazing teachers, but there's not a chance in hell they would put in the effort necessary without the pay. I get paid for 7.5, 8 hours a day, something like that. I'm paid from 7:20 in the morning until 2:50 in the afternoon. That's what my contract pays me for. I get to the school at about 6:50 or 7 a.m. And even on a day when I don't have to go to my second job as driver's ed teacher, I don't leave the building until 4:30. And I'm not paid for anything beyond 7:20 to 2:50. But it's impossible to do the work in the allotted time for my contract. So we don't prioritize our education the way the Nordic countries do, and we can't push the best practices like we should. I mean, look at what happened with Obama when he tried to do the Common Core. That's what the real problems are.